So you might have heard that there's actually some tension going on in the Middle East. There's a piece of land that is known as Judea and Samaria, part of the Holy Land, part of Israel. But there's a group of people who call it the West Bank, and they claim it as theirs and part of their own country. Now, in that West Bank, there is a city that is called Hebron. The city Hebron historically, right, is a very, very Jewish city, a very important city, and actually had quite a substantial and significant Chabad presence as well. The city of Hebron is featured in this week's Torah portion because Sarah passes away and Avraham buries her in the cave of Machpelah in the city of Hebron. This is what the cave looks like today from the outside, from one particular angle. The building, the structure was actually built by Herod, right, 2,000 years ago. This is the only complete, as far my understanding is that this is the only complete piece of work built by Herod that still is around and exists today. So it's pretty impressive from, I don't know if you would call it an archaeological perspective, but from a architectural and historical perspective, it's quite impressive, this building that has remained till this day, built 2,000 years ago. In the year 1260, the Mamelukes, the Islamic power, added two minarets to the top of the building, and they turned it into a mosque. In approximately 60 years after that, the Sultan at the time banned all non-Muslims for praying at the site. Now, as I mentioned, this is a site which is very holy to the Jews. It was not only Sarah who was buried there, but Adam and Chava, Avraham and Sarah, Yitzchak and Rivka, and Yaakov and Leah are buried there. So it's the burial site of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. And for 3,000 years, Jews have been traveling there to pray and to daven. And then in the 13th century, the Sultan banned all non-Muslims from passing the seventh step. You can't see it in this picture, but in fact, there's a elaborate staircase that leads up to the Mars Machpelah. Jews could only pray to the seventh. Jews could only go to the seventh step. So for approximately 700 years, when Jews wanted to pray at the grave of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, they were limited to the seventh step. Then came the Six-Day War, and the West Bank, which is in fact Judea and Samaria, once again became in the control and the possession of the state of Israel, and it became open to all people of all faiths, and Jews are able to pray like we have always been meant to pray at the grave of the matriarchs and the patriarchs. Today's class, we're going to talk about the origin of the cave of the Machpelah in the city of Hebron, the significance and meaning that it has for us today, and of course, a practical takeaway for our life. So the Parsha says that Sarah died at the age of 127. Avraham was looking for an ideal place to bury her, and of course, he went to the city of Hebron, and he wanted to bury her in the cave of Machpelah, where Adam and Chava, where Adam and Eve were buried. He needed to purchase the burial plot. So if we go to text number 1, this is from the Parsha, chapter 23, verses 7 through 11. And Avraham arose and prostrated himself to the people of the land, to the sons of Ches. And he spoke with them, saying, if it is your will that I bury my dead from before me, listen to me and entreat for me to Ephron, the son of Tzohar, that he may give me the Machpelah, the double cave, which belongs to him, which is at the end of his field, for a full price. Let him give it to me in your midst for a burial property. Now Ephron was sitting at the midst of the sons of Ches, and Ephron the Hittite answered Abraham in the hearing of the sons of Ches, of all those who had come into the gate of his city, saying, no, my Lord, listen to me. I have given you the field and the cave that is in it. I have given it to you. Before the eyes of the sons of my people, I have given it to you. Bury your dead. So Avraham is attempting to purchase the field and the cave to bury Sarah. And Ephron makes him an unbelievable offer. He says, I will give you the cave, the field, everything in it for free. And he makes this public declaration so everyone can hear and everyone can see how magnanimous he is being, giving the cave to Avraham. Now, why is he being so nice? Who gives away real estate, especially real estate that's very sought after? And the answer, of course, is that Avraham was a very famous person. He was a very significant person in that time, in that era. People wanted to do business with him. The fact that he had something that Avraham wanted, the fact that that Avraham needed him, and they were engaged in this very public practice, the people of Ephron's city actually appointed him to become a prominent official, to become a prominent person in their society and community because of his association and his connection to Avraham. So Ephron wanted to give the field to Avraham because it was good for him. It boosted up his social status in a major way. So Ephron was not exactly being altruistic. He had a very personal interest in giving the property to Avraham. But Avraham refuses the gift. He says, I do not want it as a gift. Ephron was quite happy to collect. Text 3b, also from Bereshis, chapter 22, again, this week's Parsha. And Avraham listened to Ephron, and Avraham weighed out to Ephron the silver that he had named in the hearing of the sons of Ches, 400 shekels of silver, accepted by the merchant. And so the field of Ephron, which is in Machpelah facing Mamre, was established as Avraham's possession. This included the field and the cave that was in it, and all the trees that were in the field, which were within its entire border around. It was to Avraham as a possession before the eyes of the sons of Ches, in the presence of all who had come within the gate of the city. So Ephron started off so magnanimous. Oh, he's so happy to give the field to Avraham. In the end, not only does Avraham pay for it, but Avraham pays the full price. Not just the full price, but the full price that's accepted by the merchant. Rashi explains that the way currency works is there's a standard denomination called the shekel. But the shekel is not necessarily worth the same in every place and in every country. There is something that's called the shekel that is accepted by the merchant, which is the highest standard, the highest value shekel. It's not normal standard currency, it's above and beyond. So he paid the full price, and he paid it with the most valuable and most expensive form of currency. We can understand the attitude of Ephron, right? He is trying to do what is best for him. When he thought giving it for free would be the best thing for him, that was a strategy he used. When he had the opportunity to still do business with Avraham and make a tremendous amount of money, that made him even more happy. So Ephron, we can understand. But what about Avraham? Why did Avraham insist that he paid? And if he's going to pay, why did he insist at paying top dollar? He could have had it for free, yet he chooses to pay. So the answer is very simple, and the answer is very logical. Avraham wanted that there should never be a claim against him for this property. He wanted to have unquestionable, undisputable legal ownership of this property, and he felt that the only way he's going to get that is if he pays for it. The Medrash, in fact, says that the nations of the world, if they ever attempt to make a claim against the Jewish people, that there's certain real estate in the land of Israel that they don't truly own, the Jewish people have a very powerful response. Text number 5 here is from the Medrash. Rebbe Yudan Bar Shimon said, there are 3 places of which the Gentiles cannot harass the Jewish people, saying, you have stolen them. They are the cave of Machpelah, the temple, and Joseph's burial plot, which of course is in Shechem. The cave of Machpelah, as the verse states, and Avraham listened to Ephron, and Avraham weighed out to Ephron 400 shekels of silver. The cave of Machpelah, the temple, as the verse states, and David gave to Arnon for the place of shekels of gold, weighing 600. I think there's a spelling mistake there, but Joseph's burial plot, as the verse states, and he bought the part of the field, i.e. Jacob had purchased Shechem, where Joseph is buried. So the Medrash testifies that there are 3 parts of the land of Israel that the ownership is undisputed. It cannot be disputed because the Torah records very clearly that a purchase was made. A legal, recognized purchase of the property was made, and there was the transfer of ownership. So Avraham was logical. He did something that makes a lot of sense. He made sure that there's going to be undisputed, undeniable, unquestionable legal ownership. However, the question still remains that why did Avraham feel that he had to do so when this piece of land was promised to him by God? Is there any more powerful authority that you can turn to than God? If God is your lawyer, if God is your deed, if God is on your side, that's the best proof that you could possibly ask for. So if the land belonged to Avraham by divine right, why was he so insistent on overpaying full price for it? Let Ephron give it to him for free. He'll have it, he'll be the ownership, things are fantastic. If one day anyone makes a claim, all he has to do is say, excuse me, God gave this to me. This is by divine right, and this is exactly what the Jewish people have said for the past 3,000 years. Avraham was not the only Jew to enter into a similar transaction within the land of Israel. The Medrash comments that King David actually did essentially the same thing. What's the background? There was a terrible plague that swept through the land of Israel. Thousands of Jewish people were dying. God communicates with King David and says, I am going to stop the plague through an angel. Meet the angel at the threshing floor of Aravna, the Jezebite. So at the threshing floor of a non-Jew. King David goes there, meets the angel, the plague is stopped. God tells King David that you must build an altar at this exact location, and this location is going to be the permanent location where the altar is going to be built for all times. The threshing floor of Aravna was actually the place where Avraham took Yitzchak to be bound on the altar to be sacrificed. It was the place where Noah offered sacrifices after the flood. It's the place where Cain and Abel offered their sacrifices to God. And it's the very spot where Adam and Eve, where the earth was taken in order to create Adam and Eve. So this is a very important and unique location, which King David needed to secure for the future temple. So the book Divrei Hayamim, Chronicles, number 1. And David said to Arnon, also Aravna, give me the place of the threshing floor so that I may build thereon an altar to God. Give it to me for the full price so that the plague be stayed from the people. And Arnon said to David, take for yourself, and may my lord the king do what seems good in his eyes. See, I have given the cattle for burnt offerings, and the threshing tools for firewood, and wheat for a meal offering. I have given everything. And King David said to Arnon, no, for I will buy it for the full price. For I will not take what is yours for God and offer up burnt offerings of nothing. And David gave to Arnon for the place shekels of gold weighing 600. So exactly the same scenario plays out with King David as did with Avraham. They were offered the land for free, but they chose to pay the full price. Now, in King David's circumstance, he had another way that he could get the property. He did not only have to rely on being gifted the property, but he was the king of Israel. His army conquered the city of Jerusalem. By his authority of being a king, he could have used eminent domain and said, Arnon, we need your property for the future Beis Hamikdash. This is going to be the location of the temple, the location of the altar. Your property belongs to us. Yet he rejects the gift. He chooses not to use eminent domain. He pays for it. And not only does he pay, but he pays the fullest possible price. Why did he do that? He did it based on what it says in this paragraph right here on the screen. He says, "For I will not take what is yours for God." What does this mean? King David is saying, right now, in this moment, this threshing floor that I want to build the Beis Hamikdash on, it belongs to you. It's yours. It's true that I can take it from you. It's true that you can gift it to me, and technically, it'll be mine. However, it will always and forever be associated with you. It's your field that you gave as a gift that he gave as a gift to the land of Israel. If I take it from you, right, it is always going to be the field that was yours that I took away from you. King David is making the statement that when we are going to build a Beis Hamikdash, we're going to build a temple for God, where the Jewish people can come to serve him, it can have no association at all with any previous owner in any way. It has to fully, completely, and 100% belong to the Jewish people. In the words of the Rebbe, text number 8 from Likutei Sichos, volume number 10. Were David to take the threshing floor only by right of having conquered the city of Jerusalem, a Ravna would still be somewhat associated with it. Moreover, even had a Ravna gifted it to him, i.e. relinquishing that association, the threshing floor would still retain its status as yours, a Ravna's, because he would still have retained some degree of rights to it. David therefore refused, saying, I will not take what is yours to any degree at all for God. David paid full price for its entire value to transfer it entirely out of Avraham's rights, so the altar and sacrifices wouldn't be associated with him at all. Whenever a large and significant donation is made, right, the person's name is forever associated with that building, right, with that gift. There's a plaque, something like that. There's a plaque of some type of recognition. So even though it's given, nevertheless, there's an association, there's a connection that that person still has. For the Beis Hamikdash, this was not acceptable. It's God's house and can't have any other association. Because this was the goal, that the temple, that this location would not have any previous association and would solely belong to the Jewish people, the Talmud actually makes a very interesting observation in relation to real estate law. The Talmud says, how do you buy real estate? There are three ways. Number one, you pay money. You give a person money for the land becomes yours. Number two, you write up a legal deed of sale and exchange it, the land becomes yours. And number three, you can do an act which demonstrates your ownership of it, which means you actually possess the land and you improve the land. Build a fence, put a lock on it, something like that. But how do we know that these things legally work? Who decided that? We need to have proof, and in the realm of the Torah, we need to have Torah proof, biblical proof. So the Talmud responds with a proof from a biblical text, at least in relationship to money being a legal form of acquisition. This is text number 9 from the Talmud Tractate Kedushin 26a. The Mishnah states, fields can be acquired with monetary payment, contracts, or by exercising ownership of it. The Talmud asks, from where do we derive that fields may be legally acquired with money? Hezekiah states, as the verse states, fields shall be purchased for money. So the Talmud brings a biblical proof that you can purchase a field with money, Where does the proof come from? From King Hezekiah, from Chizkiyahu, from the book of Jeremiah, from the book of Yirmiyahu. Now, all the commentaries ask the question, if you need a biblical proof text, why are you going to the book of Yirmiyahu, the book of Jeremiah? What about Avraham? The most famous case, the most famous story, the first one documented in the Torah. Avraham paid money to purchase the field in Hebron. If you don't want to go with the story of Avraham, what about King David? The story of King David appears hundreds of years before the story in Jeremiah. Why don't you use that as a proof text? The answer the Rebbe gives is that what Avraham and what King David was doing were not acts of acquisition of real estate, because there were other ways that they could have acquired the real estate, either by a gift or by as an act of conquer. What was their goal? Their goal was not to acquire the land. There wasn't to merely acquire the land, but it was to rid any association with the land outside of the Jewish people completely. This is why he paid full price. This was not a regular transaction. Because it was not a regular real estate transaction, the Talmud could not learn anything from it. It wasn't about real estate, it was about association. In the Rebbe's own words, we have text number 10, again from Likutei Sichos, volume 10. It is clear why the source for the legality of purchasing real property for money cannot be from the story of Ephron. The reason Avraham gave Ephron money was not to purchase the field. After all, it would have been his in any event by right of the divine gift. Rather, the purpose of giving the money was to remove any association of Ephron with the field that would remain even when the field is no longer his. Obviously, then, the verse cannot be used as a scriptural source for acquiring land for money. Everything that we've said thus far, fascinating insight into the history and the nature of the purchase of the cave of the Machpelah, where the patriarchs and the matriarchs are buried. And it's a fascinating historical exploration of the nature of the purpose and the purchase of the threshing floor of Aravna, the Jezebite, in order to have the location for the Temple Mount. What is the relevance of this story for today? Now, the answer is that it's not only Avraham and King David who are acquiring real estate for God and for the Jewish people. The reality is we are doing exactly the same job today. God created us with a purpose, right? We have a mission to fulfill in that purpose, and we are essentially God's real estate agents on earth. What is our job? The world appears to be an ownerless place, purposeless, meaningless, independent of any divine owner. We are constantly being pulled in all kinds of different directions, selfish desires, selfish motivations, lusts, interests, and so on. What is our job? Our job is to acquire real estate. Our job is to demonstrate that the world is not some type of ownerless, independent place where anything goes at all times, but it's to demonstrate that this is God's world. This purpose, this meaning, this value, this significance to everything in it and to every single moment, and we have to utilize every moment of life for that purpose. There's a fabulous story from the Tzemach Tzedek. I've shared it before, so you certainly may have heard it, which really reflects this idea that all of us are essentially divine real estate agents. There was a chassid who came to the Tzemach Tzedek, the third Rebbe of Chabad, and he poured out his heart. He desperately desires to move to the land of Israel, to the Holy Land. It's a mitzvah. He wants to be absorbed in the sanctity, the purity, the holiness of the land of Israel. For whatever reason, the Tzemach Tzedek felt it was not appropriate for him at that particular time to move to the land of Israel. So the Tzemach Tzedek said to him, Mach da Eretz Yisrael. Make here the land of Israel. Don't think that holiness can only be found in another location. Rather, you have the ability to acquire the very land that you walk on every day in your house, in your city, in your town. You can acquire that land for God as well. You could make that land into the land of Israel. Your home can reflect its creator. Your home can reflect godliness, kindness, meaning, purpose, morality, ethics, and so on. The Chassid said to him, make Israel here. Become God's real estate agent, acquire your house, your property for God and for holiness. So this is our job, right? Our job is to be God's representatives here on earth and make our lives and our land holy. Acquire it for God. But how do we do it? What is the process? What is the procedure? How do we acquire land for God? The answer is, it's expensive. The answer is, it's going to cost you. The answer is, the only way to do it is by paying full price. Let's go to text number 12 from the Zohar. The Zohar says, anyone who wishes to banish an unholy spirit must pay good money for the mitzvahs he or she performs. Whatever the asking price, large or small, it should be paid. Unholy spirits always feed off of emptiness and giveaways. It comes at no price and entices people to live with it, seducing people in many ways to fall for it. What the Zohar is telling us is that human beings naturally are selfish, and most selfish pleasures are for free. They're so easy. In order for a person to overcome the selfish pleasures and selfish nature of you have, you got to work hard. You got to overcome it, right? You got to invest in yourself. It's going to cost money in order to be able to break nature. What do we want? Mitzvahs for free. When it costs money, now that's going to make you uncomfortable. All of a sudden, there's going to be movement. That's the only way that there's going to be spiritual growth. That's the only way that there's going to be a difference. Because a holiness is not like that. Holiness doesn't come for free. It's found only at full price and with much effort. We have another text from Eliezer ben Moshe Azkiri. He wrote a book called Sefer Charedim. It's a book which describes all of the 613 mitzvahs. He writes this in the introduction. The 17th condition: one should never fulfill a mitzvah for free. Rather, one should always pay full price without consideration so as to banish any impurity. This means to banish any element of ego, of selfishness that's controlling you and holding you back. Break yourself, become uncomfortable, you got to pay full price. That's the only way that a person is going to acquire a mitzvah. If there is no effort that is above and beyond what is comfortable for you, then your relationship and your connection with that mitzvah is going to be lacking. Why? Because a mitzvah is supposed to change you. A mitzvah is supposed to transform you from a human being that's main concern is self-preservation and self-gratification to a human being that is concerned with fulfilling the purpose for which you were created, making a dwelling place for God on this earth. To be a selfless, egoless, motivated, and passionate Jew. If it doesn't take or require effort to do the mitzvah, it will not and cannot change you. We're not saying that the mitzvah is meaningless. God forbid a person did a mitzvah. But it would be like walking on a treadmill at the lowest possible level, with the least possible resistance. Is it exercise? Is it good for you? It's probably something. It's definitely not worthless. If you spent a half hour every day walking very slowly on a treadmill, it's something. But is it going to create the change that you really need? Will you lose weight? Will you get in shape? Will you become a healthy person? Not with that little amount of resistance. We need real change. We need a real breakthrough. And that only comes through making yourself uncomfortable, going to the max. The Torah says we are obligated to serve God. To serve God means, the definition of serving means beyond your norm, beyond your comfort zone. That is what it means to serve God. We are God's real estate agents. We are sent here to acquire property, which means maximum effort, full price. We need to remove any association from our life, from being interested in self-preservation and self-gratification, from independence, from selfishness, with being concerned about worldly and material type of things. We're not just acquiring the real estate for God, but just like Avraham and just like King David, we need to remove any association that we have towards those other things as well. Now, when it comes to doing these mitzvahs, we may find that some mitzvahs are very hard and very difficult for us to get into. And there are other mitzvahs that are very easy for us to do. We love these mitzvahs. They're beautiful mitzvahs. They bring us pleasure. They tangibly enhance our life. We find them to be very meaningful. We connect with them very, very easily. Along comes Avraham, along comes David HaMelech, King David, and they say, if someone wants to give you a gift of real estate, if there are mitzvahs in your life that for you, it's like a gift, it's a pleasure, it's so easy, you must reject it. You must reject it. You have to say no. That is not enough. If you want to truly not just acquire the mitzvah, but remove any other associations from things that are the opposite for productivity when it comes to spirituality, you got to pay full price. It requires maximum effort. In the words of the Rebbe, text number 15, L'Kutei Sichos again, volume number 10. One should not think, personally, I'm naturally inclined to Jewish observance. Additionally, the Torah was given to me as a gift. For me, it's easy to keep the mitzvahs because my Yetzer Hara, my evil inclination and animal soul go easy on me. So the need for spiritual hard work doesn't apply to me. Avraham and King David teach us otherwise. Even in the case of something that was rightfully theirs and which they could have gotten easily, they refused to accept it for free. Instead, they paid full price for it. So yes, there's parts of Judaism that we love and it's fabulous and it's beautiful and it's great. It's the greatest gift to our lives that God gave us these mitzvahs because they enhance our life so much. The message from Avraham and King David, that is not enough. That's not just, that will not change us. That will not force us to grow. That's not being a real estate agent for God. It requires maximum effort. How? We have to make sure that we are uncomfortable. We have to making sure that we're doing beyond and more than what comes natural to us. We have to constantly challenge ourselves to do more. To do more in the area, of course, when it comes to mitzvahs that are challenging, but even the mitzvahs that we're comfortable and that we like, how could we enhance it? How could we grow it? How could we push ourselves just a little bit more? We have to make sure that we're asking ourselves the question every day. The litmus test of success is whether we are on autopilot or investing effort. If we're on autopilot, did we really acquire those mitzvahs? Do those mitzvahs really become part of our life? Do they define us? Or we're just cruising along on autopilot? To achieve success, we have to invest in our mitzvahs, maximum effort, and we got to pay full price. So what is it that we learned today? We learned today that nothing is free, right? Nothing good or valuable in life is free. If we are willing to invest the time and the effort, then we truly will acquire all the blessings that come along with Torah and mitzvahs. They will become part of us. They will become our identity. We will be people who truly are growing and changing and enhancing ourselves throughout our life. All right, any questions or comments?
I think it's It's a nice way to think of maximum effort, or the combination, or the connection to um, how Abraham, whatever, and King David, didn't take it for free. So it's a nice linkage. It makes you, it puts it a little bit into perspective. Yeah, but on the other hand, like you said, it's not necessarily easy, and there's things that are easier to do, and things that are more difficult, and every day is a struggle in some ways to keep pushing out of autopilot. So I mean, I think there are words to certainly motivate, but yet that motivation is a sinusoidal wave at times. Yeah.
Absolutely. I saw a music video that was just made quite recently, I think within the past month or two. It was a tribute to a chassid who passed away last year. His name was Rabbi Lisson. I think he was French, but I'm not 100% sure. His name was Rabbi Lisson. And he was a person who his entire life, every day, would daven for hours and hours and hours. And often in the middle of the davening, he would pause and he would sing various Chabad nigunim. And this music video was one of the nigunim that he used to sing all the time. They made a beautiful music video, but they also depicted in the video what it means to daven for a long time. And the video really moved me because most people naturally don't enjoy davening. I've heard from many, many people that it's hard to relate, to open up the book, to read the words. They don't feel invested. They don't feel involved. Therefore, some people don't do it. Other people do it because they enjoy coming to shul. The songs at least are really nice. There's a great social scene. To be a Jew, davening is part of life, so we do it. But the truth is, how is a person going to really appreciate davening and grow in their abilities if a person makes the effort to daven for hours and hours every day? Now, we may not have the time to do that, but when a person puts in the effort and say, this is important to me, I need to appreciate davening, I need it to be more prominent in my life. So that means I'm going to put maximum effort in understanding what the prayer means. First, beginning with the literal translation. What do the prayers actually mean? Many of the prayers are from the book of Tehillim. The book of Tehillim has many, many commentaries. Learn the commentaries on the book of Tehillim. Learn some of the commentaries that go further and describe various other prayers. Think about it, reflect upon it, plug into it. Find out what it means to you. If the words don't mean anything to you, why? What's lacking, what's missing that it doesn't mean anything to you? Right? It's a process of hard work, and this applies to any mitzvah, it applies to anything in life. People who are willing to work on themselves, to sweat, they grow and are successful. It applies when it comes to exercise, it applies to the business world, it applies to everything. If you're willing to sweat, late nights, make effort, the gains and the growth is going to be there. And we learned that here so beautifully from Avraham and David HaMelech. They're giving it to you for free. You could have it, it'll be yours. It's not enough. It's not enough. It's never going to be really, truly yours. It's not going to be yours unless you pay full price and maximum efforts. All right, next week's class, Tuesday, 7:30 p.m., we're going to be exploring the Torah portion of Toldos. To plow is to sow, is to reap, two sides of the tshuva coin. We're going to be looking at the story of Yaakov and Yitzchak and the blessings that were given to him as opposed to the ones that were given to Esav. So fascinating discussion next week's class, how it relates to two different sides of tshuva. And of course, we have tomorrow evening, 7:30. We're going to continue with Secrets of the Bible, story number 2, Noah's Ark, the whole story of the flood. Thank you so much for joining us in tonight's class. Hope that you enjoyed it and found it meaningful and that you'll have some good practical takeaways from it. Have a fabulous evening, and God willing, we'll see some of you tomorrow, next week, or this Shabbos.